Let's talk about the benefits of a well-sequenced class. Not just focusing on one area of the body, but we're making sure to balance everything out by targeting all areas of the body, strengthening, lengthening, and this helps people to feel worked out but not over the top exhausted. So if you're thinking of leading your class, for example, using a warm-up and then you're slowly coming up to the peak and then you're coming down to the cool down experience. So if you're working with the peak theme, and if you go straight into the really high active warm-up, they might feel too exhausted to go into their peak poses. So it's important to take that into consideration, the rhythm you use in your class. Again, it's important to prep the bodies of your students before you try out your poses, and try and teach the pose. So you're not just demonstrating it yourself. So really be aware of each student and make sure that they're prepping their body properly, safe alignments, and just be really attentive with each individual person in your class. So this will help your students to grow and have a lot more knowledge of the poses. So when your classes are thought out and sequenced, your students will notice this. And as a teacher, you will feel that your lessons will probably flow easier if you have a thought out sequence behind it. Although you always need to be open to improvising depending on who comes into your class. But if you have a bit of a basic planning, that way you can offer a full experience to your students, and it always gives you that extra confidence to be prepared for your class rather than just throwing it quickly in the moment. So one of the good ways to choose a sequence is to choose poses that pair up. So for example, arm balances and forward folds pair well together. And also back bends and inversions go well together. So let's talk about why they go well together. All arm balances require the lifting of the belly and the tucking in of the ribs. So this action is asking the body to fold into its center in order to create these shapes. So when you think about what's happening in the body, in the front part of the body, with the arm balances, you're sending the body into a type of a forward fold. Unless you're just totally balancing on the hands. So for example, a crow pose, there's a forward fold element to the crow pose. So it's a good idea to dissect your pose, which means to see what needs to happen to make this asana possible. So which parts of the body needs to be strengthened, which parts need to be lengthened. So when you're dissecting the pose, look at all the key alignment points in the pose. Pay special attention to what's happening and the shape of the spine, and what needs to be opened and what needs to be strengthened. So an idea behind building your class will mean beginning with more simple for your warm-ups and your more simple poses, and eventually coming to your challenging pose, your peak pose, and coming down to your cool down. So this would be a well-sequenced class, because the beginning poses will help prepare your students for those challenging poses, and they will contain similar physical elements in the simple poses and the challenging poses. Also, introducing a basic flow is a good idea, and then have that repeating, and as you repeat you begin to add on different poses. You don't overcomplicate the flow, and this will distract the student, and it's a good idea that students can get involved in the flow in almost a meditative way, which can be quite a great experience. So slowly introduce your different poses into your repeats. So once the student gets familiar with the transitions, that's when they will be able to focus more on their own movements and not have to be so focused on the teacher and looking and the whole visual references. So this is why repetitiveness can be really helpful within the flows.